Let's jump right into this explainer and deconstruct a true masterpiece of economic anxiety and storytelling architecture. We're looking at R.K. Narayan's short story, Out of Business. Now, today, we aren't just looking at what happens in the plot, we're breaking down exactly how it's told. We're going to examine a brilliant technique that I absolutely love called the narrative funnel. This is where the author takes these massive, global economic forces and skillfully narrows them down tighter and tighter until they are focused entirely on a single man's psyche. It's brilliant.
So I really want you to keep this question in the back of your mind as we explore the central mystery of cause and effect that kicks off our narrative. Seriously, think about how fragile our sense of everyday stability actually is. In Narayan's world, a completely ordinary family can be completely ruined by a single event they know absolutely nothing about, featuring people they have literally never met. It's a pretty terrifying thought, right? But it's the exact engine that drives this whole story forward.
Section 1. The Master of Malgudi, a microcosm of middle-class life. To really get Narayan's famously understated narrative style, we have to talk about his setting. He uses this fictional town of Malgudi as a kind of petri dish. It allows him to take massive, uncontrollable themes, things like rapid modernization or total economic collapse, and examine them on a very intimate, human scale. Malgudi isn't some bustling, faceless metropolis. It's a quiet, recognizable South Indian town. By placing the story here, Narayan ensures the narrative is deeply grounded. We aren't reading some dry academic paper about market crashes. We are watching a family we recognize, living in a town we feel we know, suddenly have the rug pulled out from under them.
Section 2. The butterfly effect of ruin, the macro inciting incident.
Let's start with the incredibly wide macro lens Narayan uses to trigger his protagonist's ruin. This perfectly illustrates the utterly absurd chain of events that takes down our protagonist, Rama Rao. Just look at the sheer geographical distance involved here. First, a financier in Bombay drives his car off a cliff, suspected suicide, by the way, because his wife eloped with his cashier. That isolated, scandalous death causes a bank in Lahore to fail. That bank failure then causes a gramophone factory in North India to collapse. And because of that, our guy in Malgudi loses his agency, his security deposit, and his entire livelihood. It establishes our core theme right at the very top of the funnel, complete and total powerlessness against global forces. Now, notice how Narayan summarizes this massive macroeconomic disaster in the text. He doesn't spend pages and pages detailing the financial complexities. He simply calls it a bolt from the blue. With just a few distant, inevitable sentences, Narayan sweeps away 5 years of comfort and stability. This narrative choice is so incredibly effective because it directly mirrors Rama Rao's own experience. To him, the disaster is sudden, it's inexplicable, and it is completely out of his control. By contrasting the family's reality before and after the crash, we see how Narayan tightly stages the pacing of the financial collapse. The story doesn't just jump straight to poverty. We have to watch the agonizing, slow descent. First, the bank of money melts away. Then the cook and the servant are let go. The kids are pulled from their fashionable nursery. Finally, they rent out their lovely bungalow and have to move to a small house behind the market, where we read about the children's clothes actually beginning to fray. Do you see what's happening? The narrative funnel is narrowing. We're moving from the macroeconomy down into the suffocating reality of a shrinking household budget. Moving to Section 3, the illusion of control, the micro-descent. Here is where the narrative funnels down even further. Rama Rao is desperate. He's failing to find a job, sending out dozens of applications every single day. And then he discovers a crossword puzzle journal in the local reading room called The Captain. Narayan masterfully uses this journal as a narrative device for false hope. It basically becomes an escape hatch from the overwhelming guilt he feels every time he looks at his wife and children. This 4,000 rupee weekly prize pulls him into an absolute obsession. Notice how dramatically Narayan shifts the narrative focus here. Rama Rao is no longer thinking about global gramophone markets or job applications. Not at all. His entire world has shrunk to debating whether a crossword answer should be tallow or follow, or if bad, mad, or sad if it's a clue. The narrative funnel is so incredibly tight now that an entire week of Rama Rao's life revolves around a single letter in a 4-page magazine. And the crucial point arrives when the journal announces a special 8,000 rupee jackpot. To cover all the possible letter combinations, Rama Rao realizes he needs more money than his usual 1 rupee allowance. So, he actually demands 5 rupees from his wife. Just for context, that was nearly a week's food for his family at this point. He demands it for this special puzzle gamble. This text highlights the incredible juxtaposition between the grim, physical reality of his starving family and his tiny, pathetic attempt at control through a crossword puzzle. His wife is left completely speechless by the atrocious nature of his demand. Rama Rao feels this brief flash of guilt, sure, but he immediately blocks it out by thinking about the words hope, dope, or rope. It's a stunning piece of psychological writing. He is literally choosing the illusion of hope over feeding his family purely because the puzzle is the only thing in his life he feels he can actually solve. Section 4. The climax of despair, the dramatic pinch point. Well, he loses the massive gamble, and all his disappointments come crashing down on him with renewed force. We zoom into the tightest possible lens of psychological unraveling. The narrative funnel has reached its absolute tip. Rama Rao doesn't go home. Instead, he walks down the railway line in the dark and literally lies down on the warm iron railway tracks, waiting for the Trichinopoly train to end it all. Notice how Narayan brings us directly into Rama Rao's sensory experience here. The darkness, the distant signal lights, the warmth of the iron rails. He has completely, utterly surrendered to his lack of control. But then, the train never comes. Rama Rao gets tired of waiting, walks back to the station, and learns from the crowd that a goods train has actually derailed 3 stations away. It's blocking the track and delaying all trains by 3 hours. Narayan pulls a literal deus ex machina here. An unexpected, entirely external event swoops in to save the protagonist.
Which brings us to Section 5, Ruin and Resilience, Deus Ex Machina and Resolution.
We really have to ask ourselves how this external intervention on the train tracks connects back to the beginning of the story. It is a brilliant example of Narayan's structural symmetry. He uses random, uncontrollable events at both the macro beginning and the micro climax of the narrative funnel. Think about it. A car accident in Bombay ruined Rama Rao's life without his permission, and now a train derailment 3 stations away saves his life without his permission. The narrative argues that the universe is entirely indifferent. The forces that crush us and the forces that spare us are equally blind. Realizing he's been granted this bizarre sort of mercy, Rama Rao runs home. He discovers his wife is uncharacteristically warm and just so relieved to see him. Over dinner, she drops some major news. Their tenants want to buy the bungalow for 4,500 rupees. Suddenly, they have capital again. They can move to a better area, and he can go to Madras to find real work. But the true emotional resolution comes when his wife quietly asks if he's going to use his share of the money to buy more crossword puzzles. Rama Rao is momentarily depressed by the memory, but emphatically swears it off. He says, no, never again. He has finally let go of the illusion. I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to consider about your own economic security and the timeless brilliance of Narayan's theme. The narrative approach of Out of Business teaches us that while we absolutely cannot control the massive macroeconomic forces that shape our lives or the random accidents that derail our plans, the only true agency we have is in how we respond to the people right in front of us. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this deep dive into Narayan's narrative structure has given you a whole new appreciation for this classic story. Catch you next time!